Hello and welcome to another fortnightly session of Great Shouts. Every fortnight we come together to discuss a B2B marketing topic. We have a person or people that can present on that particular topic for 15 to 20 minutes. And then for the guys who attend each fortnight, they can chip in and do some grilling with questions. I record the session and send it out to everyone who's part of the community. And this fortnight, we've got the pleasure of Nat and Jess from Mac and More. And we're going to be discussing everything that brands are doing around sustainability and ESG. So yeah, over to you guys if you want to share your screen and crack on.
Thanks, Ed.
And thank you.
Let me just do the screen. I'll just do the technical supports. IT manager. Right, can you see that, Ed? Fantastic. Off you go, Jessica.
Fantastic. Oh, look at that move. Didn't know that was going to happen. Hello, everyone. Thank you for showing up, and all the robots too. It's good to have you here. We're excited to kind of, when Ed came to us and was asking about a possible topic, ESG and sustainability seems to be really front of mind for a lot of our clients. We've kind of got a personal interest in it too. So we thought it would be a bit of a fun one to explore on this session today. So we're going to just do a little bit of an intro about who we are. We're not just two random people just showing up. A little bit about us, what we do, our kind of process. Then sort of talk about ESG from a sort of brand perspective. We specifically work with a lot of B2B businesses, so we've kind of got an interest in that space. And then hopefully have a little bit of a discussion at the end. So who are Mac and More? We are an established award-winning brand consultancy made up of Jess and Nat. And we purposely kind of have a model where it's just us in terms of strategy and creative. And then we kind of have a sort of network of best-in-class sort of freelance strategists, creatives, copywriters, web designers who kind of work alongside us to kind of bring our work to life. We worked client side and agency side for 10 plus years before we kind of formed Mac and More, and we really just felt that there was just such an opportunity for independent talent to kind of come together and be able to kind of answer clients' brand needs. We really feel that creativity can be used as a tool for success, especially in B2B, which is such an underloved space, and there's so much opportunity to kind of stand out, be memorable, have a little bit of fun. I think that with a lot more sort of millennials kind of moving into being those sort of business decision makers, having a different tone of voice, thinking about how your brand can have a personality can be a real differentiator in today's marketplace. So we've worked with, I don't know why one of them hasn't come up. So for 7 years we've been going, we've worked with 60 plus clients, lots of, whether it's kind of like a sort of big sort of Jess,
sorry, yeah. I can't see your slides moving.
Okay.
Oh,
that's weird.
You can't see them at all?
Oh no, we can see them. We can see them. I think you were going on to a next slide and we couldn't see them moving on to the next slide, if that makes sense.
Good old Zoom.
I'm just going to do that as well. So if we do that.
Oh, now it's working.
Great.
It's working. Okay, great.
Just shout at me if it doesn't, so people are just not like,
thanks, Ed.
Yeah, here's just a roster of some of the clients we've worked with. So we kind of always come at things from a sort of positive lens perspective, but we've worked with SMEs, big sort of corporates, and also kind of scale up startups. See this one? Fantastic. We also have a sort of forming in 2016 amidst the sort of Me Too movement, Trump coming into power, like a lot of sort of political turmoil, which doesn't seem to have stopped really since that time. We've always kind of had a core kind of base of sort of a set of purpose and a set of values. So alongside the client work we do, we also kind of do a lot of talking ourselves, in particular sort of about the topic of gender, sort of women in leadership, also in terms of inclusivity. And this is why as well we're interested in this kind of conversation on ESG and sustainability as well.
So kind of diving into the topic really now, as Jess said, we've kind of spent a lot of time working with B2B companies on their brands. And something that we found more and more recently is there's been this huge shift from sort of CSR initiatives and maybe a conversation around brand purpose and whether that's the right place for businesses to be putting themselves into a lot of these kind of social conversations or cultural conversations. But something that seems to be really prominent is this idea of sort of weaving an ESG agenda or a kind of sustainability agenda into the actual brand positioning. And, you know, what we've realized is that actually this isn't a nice to have anymore. This is something that's business critical. So whether you are a company that is looking to build a really great culture and hire the best people, you need to be able to kind of authentically and like meaningfully talk about things that your potential employees will care about, or whether that is actually your clients. We've got a few clients in particular where they are really, you know, they're kind of big believers in sort of trying to create more of a positive impact through their own business, but their own business clients, actually it's now compulsory that their suppliers have, you know, can demonstrate really strong ESG credentials. So we know that now that this is something that is only going to become more and more prominent, but you basically run the risk, if this is something that maybe your business has never talked about before, maybe it's a new addition if you're more of an established business, you know, how do you avoid either sounding like you're sort of box ticking? How do you avoid sort of sounding like this is a bolt on to your brand positioning, maybe even a really established brand? And, you know, sort of the worst one of all, how do you avoid the skepticism and the cynicism of people thinking that you're actually greenwashing and focusing on one particular area, say of like net zero or whatever that might be, and then actually not sort of communicating more of the well-rounded efforts around sustainability. So we're really interested in this as a topic. We're really interested in kind of learning more and researching more in it. But from our experience, we've put together 3 suggestions that we feel like brands can kind of take on board in order to try and weave their ESG agenda or their sustainability you know, sort of action plan into their brands in a kind of meaningful way. So Jess is gonna take the lead and tell us how to do it.
So number one, I mean, in terms of B2B and brand in general, I think we have permission that we can, you know, make our customers laugh and that we can be a little bit humorous. That comes back to the personality. Not everything has to be a sort of really formal approach. This is a really lovely quote by the B2B cartoonist Tom Fishburne. I don't know if you've come across him, but you should definitely look him up because he's got some hilarious cartoons that he's put together. I love this quote of humor can be an act of empathy. So we all know that people buy people, but in the world of B2B, there's often a lot of robotics, and people are scared to use humor. If it's not in a considered way, it can come off wrong. Obviously, there's lots of different sort of cultural perspectives to think about as well, but it is a really powerful way to create human connections. I mean, Nat and I, with all of our clients, there's some sort of like humorous sort of comedic sort of interaction that we have that kind of, especially in a discovery session, allows people to kind of disarm themselves and kind of be a lot more open-minded about the business challenges that they're facing and how we can help them. So this idea that humor is a great disarmer in terms of not only kind of the way you position the conversations about some of these really quite heavy and difficult subjects, but also about the way that you can position, a brand can position that to their customer too. So this is a really brilliant example. We're going to show a video. So Ed, you're going to have to shout at me if this video doesn't play. The tech is always something that doesn't work on Zoom. And maybe some of you have seen this, but it's a brilliant initiative by sort of Make My Money Matter, which was a sort of creative outcome by Lucky Generals, which are a creative agency. And this was to be able to sign a petition to stop UK pension schemes financing fossil fuel expansion. So if you haven't seen it, I'm just going to play the video now because really I can't do it justice just talking about it.
That freeze frame.
Hello, my name is Olivia Colwine, and on behalf of the fossil fuel industries, I would like to say a huge thank you for all your support this bumper year. People like you have pumped billions of your hard-earned pounds into our gas and oil businesses. The cash from your pensions has helped us dig, drill and destroy more of the planet than ever before. We've even managed to build a few little wind turbines to keep Greta and her chums happy. Cute. You see, every little drop from your precious nest egg adds up. So while the global temperature may go up a teensy-weensy degree or two, our profits are literally soaring. And that's all thanks to you. So to guarantee us all a warmer, snugglier future, please keep sending your pensions our way. You know the drill. Oh, fracking hell. Okay, start again.
Yes.
And I love, and I'm sure some of you have also seen Apple's Mother Nature campaign that came out recently. If you haven't, do watch it, because it's a similar kind of humorous take on a really sort of serious topic. Also, I think it's more memorable. So I think that, you know, that's the whole purpose of some of these communications, to create impact, to be memorable. And I think that it really answers on that objective. So don't be afraid to add a little bit of humor.
So from humour to optimism, because, you know, as we all know, these kind of subjects, particularly around, say, more on the environmental side of the climate, it can feel quite heavy. And also, if you're a business that sort of is dealing with something that's maybe quite sort of technical or quite sort of corporate driven, it can be really easy to kind of slip into either like scaremongering language, or sort of, you know, not really communicate effectively what the outcomes or like the reasons why you're sort of working on all these kind of topics and implementing these things into your business can be. So I think, you know, in terms of how to resonate with an audience, actually, you know, learning how to balance kind of the efforts you're making with the problem itself is something tonally that can be quite difficult to do, but if you hit it right, like it can really kind of be very effective in making a difference. So for example, if you kind of focus too much on the problem, so like, you know, as these sort of like, you know, the media news cycle, you've got a sense of urgency, which we need. So particularly in something like net zero action or net zero pathways, you know, that is a deadline. It's something that, you know, needs a lot of urgency around it. But I think if you focus too much on the negatives or on the problem-based language, you can create fear, which can lead into inertia. It can lead into kind of people sort of getting their heads buried in the day-to-day, and it can actually have the opposite effect, which is like even your internal comms, say for example, people can sort of not feel like anything they do is going to have an impact. Whereas if you just focus on the positives, and don't really kind of like put that sort of sense of urgency in there, it can feel quite glib. So it can feel sort of, you know, not really grounded in reality, and it sometimes can feel like you're sort of patting yourselves on the back as a business and being like, look, everything we're doing, like we're going to make the whole difference and everything's great. So actually you sort of lose this sense of urgency, and so without optimism there's no action, and without urgency there's no progress. So it's just really a point around saying, like, think about your language, think about how you're not just what you're saying, but tonally how you're kind of putting that across, and making sure that you really strike that balance that allows people to feel really hopeful and positive. And an organization that we think does this in a really, really great way is something like the Rivers Trust. You know, they sort of outline what the planet is facing. You know, there's some real serious kind of really, really serious things on the agenda at the moment, particularly in terms of kind of water and how that moves around, and the issues that are affecting you know, the UK in terms of that. But they actually managed to sort of strike a really hopeful, optimistic tone that feels really action based. And I think B2B organizations can really learn from that, of going, actually it's not just about what we say we're going to do, it's about like, actually these are the actions, and then this is how we're going to make it really accountable. And finally,
number 3, be unexpected. So we absolutely see a need for reporting. You know, I'm sure a lot of you in terms of B2B have seen a lot of reports in your time. From a brand and sort of marketing perspective, there's something that come up and are really beneficial, because it's able to outline, usually in long form, a lot of complex and sort of nuanced subject matters that need to be explained via infographics or by long form text. But the issue with some of these reports is that sometimes it can happen once a quarter or once a year. It feels like one piece that people are having to read that's a long form piece of copy, and it's just not an opportunity to kind of be more present in the kind of day-to-day and show how sustainability, ESG, or your purpose can show up in kind of like your everyday communications. So I thought a really lovely example of this was David Hyatt, who's the founder of the Do Lectures, who I'm a huge fan of. I mean, he's a founder of many incredible brands. But this one was a sort of initiative for Black Friday where they kind of shut down the website just for the day as a kind of stance of going, actually, this is not just about us sort of selling discounts, not just about us pushing something. This is just a reminder that actually overconsumption is really bad for the planet. It was a lovely kind of piece. Obviously here on LinkedIn, you can kind of see the engagement that it got. It really sort of put across their purpose. Their customers are founders of businesses, freelancers, who want to do good with the world with the businesses that they do. So it felt completely in line with their customers' kind of point of view and their customers' purpose as well. And it just felt like a just really simple kind of activation that felt really meaningful in that kind of day-to-day. So we thought that was just a really nice example to show how you can do something that's quite smart, but not going to break the bank either. So moving forwards, that's the kind of end of our sort of quick deck, but your brand can really help you with your ESG goals, using humor, being optimistic and being unexpected, and just how important brand is as a gatekeeper for future relevance and success. Don't underestimate it. And I just really love this quote that I read recently when sort of reading somebody who was talking about sort of like the climate emergency in terms of businesses. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So if you're not thinking with a future focus kind of point of view about how you can change your business up to meet, you know, your customers' needs and kind of the planet's needs, then it's not going to look good for the future.
You're going to get swallowed up, baby.
You're going to get swallowed up. And that's it.
Okay, should we stop sharing and then we can come back to the screen?
Thank you, guys. That was great. Yeah, there's kind of so many kind of interesting kind of points to take up on it. I think the first one for me is just around the increasing kind of engagement of maybe kind of millennials, but also Gen Z in terms of, you know, naturally more people in that way coming into positions of power in companies and having more of an influence. Do you see that like a kind of real kind of growing trend as those guys come into, you know, start obviously in jobs and roles and then start kind of getting higher and higher as well in organizations?
So totally. I think, you know, we've been talking for a few years now about that shift from millennials now becoming more of those sort of key decision makers. And as you say, I think, you know, if you look at that and forecast that forwards, it's only going to happen again with Gen Z and beyond. And I think the main point I would say about that sort of Gen Z audience is that they will sniff out an inauthentic message so quickly and be so much more likely to hold a business or hold, you know, a leader of a business to account. So I think it's even more of a reason to be trying to think about the authenticity, which we hate that word because it's just been so overused, but thinking about your positioning of your brand and your business and the things that you feel like you do have a voice in or you want to kind of talk about, you want to get involved in, and make that really meaningful. We've all seen the examples of organizations that have like jumped on gay pride, for example, and you know it's been proven that actually that social aspect of their ESG, you know, the way they treat their people has not lived up to it. So I think it's a really good point and more of an incentive to essentially make sure that what you're doing, it doesn't sit outside of your brand, it actually sits within it.
And I think from an EVP perspective as well, from a recruitment perspective, if you're going to get a kind of sort of younger audience kind of coming in, I mean, I know even in our sector and the kind of the businesses we work with, that's absolutely crucial for those young people, that people have certain policies that kind of talk to this space. And talent, especially obviously in the tech industries, is such a huge topic at the moment. There's a lot of talent shortages, so just thinking of it not just in terms of your customers but also your people as well, I think is really important.
I think a lot of companies probably kind of are really worried walking that tightrope. You can mention like box ticking or greenwashing, or the fear of not getting it right. And if it doesn't align to the values of the company, or even like the mission and the vision, then it might feel a bit empty. So, is there any kind of ways you recommend, like testing the waters and finding that right positioning for a B2B brand? Does it kind of come back to looking at the values and finding something which kind of resonates?
Yeah, I think whenever customers come to us, it's usually they're repositioning, or they're looking to rebrand, and that's usually because their market has changed, or the challenges that they're facing are changing, and they kind of need to rethink about the message and the positioning that they're putting out there. So part of that process obviously is customer interviews, and as part of that, we've kind of baked in these questions about ESG and sustainability. One of our clients, for example, is down a B Corp process, which not only is just like obviously this badge of honor, but throughout that process, which is quite rigorous, they're actually learning so much through it that I think before they started that journey, they had no idea kind of what path it would take them on. So I think the biggest thing is being open-minded, and most of the entrepreneurs we work with are really forward thinking. So if you're a forward thinker, you're entrepreneurial, you're on the pulse of what matters, this is just going to seem like an obvious choice. And in particular, if you're working, we work with a lot of sort of property clients in the kind of construction or property world, it's absolutely crucial. I mean, ESG sustainability goals are, a part of that supply chain aspect are you might not win a pitch if you don't have a certain sort of amount of credentials that you've kind of mapped out, or showing how you're trying to kind of meet those kind of sustainability goals. So I think that they're sort of too strong. It is from the values of the founder, but it's also that kind of forward thinking, sort of future focused approach.
And I think it was interesting, Ed, you mentioned vision and mission there, because that's something that, again, when you're looking into that brand positioning, really, really critical. And I think a lot of businesses sort of fall down the trap of setting their vision statement that is really kind of about them. So it's about either the sort of like commercial, target that they want to get to, number of headcount, be the best, be the leading. And actually, we always try and steer people away from that. It's one thing to have that kind of North Star metric of like where you want your brand to get to, but really your vision should be about the type of landscape that you're looking to build on behalf of like growing your business, and your mission statement is about how you're going to get there. So I think as well, if you have a really clear vision statement that's kind of incorporated not only like the purpose of your business, which again is really important. Nobody needs to feel too worthy and like they're just talking about saving the world. Like that's going to be the most inauthentic thing you can do. We all know that these businesses are here to make money and to sell things, and and that's fine. But I think in setting that vision statement, and really taking some time to really bring your internal staff on that journey with you and help them to really buy into it. Because I mean, somebody just like sitting there in a junior position isn't going to care about how much money you want to make as the CEO or the founder, in 5 years' time. But if you really kind of think about that vision statement is about the landscape and how you're looking to change the landscape as it is currently, I think that's a really great opportunity to start weaving some of that idea in. Because if you're thinking about, especially say in property, 10 years time, the property landscape's going to look very different than it is now. So being quite conscious about that, I think, is a really good place to start.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well, because I was going to ask a question about kind of measurement and how you kind of measuring the benefits and effects of that. And obviously, ideally see that in kind of brand metrics. But yeah, in terms of how this kind of flows through against an EVP internally for either recruitment in terms of bringing new people in, or retention to a company, I suppose they're all elements that a business wants to consider when they're including ESG and sustainability.
Yeah, definitely. I think it really feels as though like when we started our careers many moons ago, it was like, what are the perks? Like that's what you'd be really like looking for the business. You'd be like, what are you going to offer me? Like, do we give free drinks on a Thursday and like all that kind of thing? Whereas now I genuinely think that the workforce, they're looking for if you're going to spend 80% of your life like sitting in a building or like plugging yourself into a screen and working on behalf of someone, I do think, you know, there is a sense that you want to feel like there's more to it than that. So
I think a bigger piece is as well is beyond sustainability, but thinking about brand, is that any sort of performance marketing, which, you know, performance is not our bag, but great creative with great performance marketing, you know, that combination is really powerful. And this is just about a message of one particular part of a business, but that can be any brand message that you're putting forward. And if you have those kind of two aspects kind of married, then I think that is, there's a lot of metrics for success. Obviously brand is difficult to quantify on its own, but I kind of believe that it's that kind of mix, that magical mix, that when they work together, there's some sort of really powerful things can happen. I mean, the Do Lectures post that I put there just showed kind of like the reach and the engagement of something on LinkedIn, just sharing a small initiative like that, which probably didn't take too much time for them to sort of think about and kind of implement. And I think that's a nice example of like how an idea can kind of create some sort of viral impact, and have like a kind of really positive effect.
Yeah, I suppose you're showing the kind of depth of the brand as well, not just about those kind of like corporate kind of metrics. So yeah, I think that's powerful as well. So I'd like to ask a few kind of, I suppose, grilling, challenging questions. I suppose, sorry, Sam.
Sorry, I was just going to quickly, I just wanted to ask something. Thanks for the talk, that was really interesting. I heard a term the other day, which was in conjunction with greenwashing, and it's green hushing. And it's this idea that people are scared to talk about the good stuff that they're doing. And I think that kind of relates to some of the stuff you talked about earlier about being unsure about how things might be received and whether they're going to be questioned over whether it's the right thing. Do you think that's something that you've come across with some of your clients, where they're actually really nervous about celebrating the good stuff? And then it's kind of like, no, we should, you know, overall positivity of moving in the right direction should be celebrated, but people nervous about doing it?
There's definitely a nervousness, particularly in areas which maybe have like complexity to them. So if there's, say, a particular, like say an environmental area that's getting a lot of heat in the press, then it does feel like the stakes are higher for sort of adding your voice into any of that, even for something positive. And so it does take confidence. It absolutely, you need to be able to feel like you can back up what you're saying. And I do think it would be a real shame if it got to the point where people weren't.
I think there's a big difference between, Nat and I were talking about this earlier, scale-ups or startups who have been created in the last couple of years, where they can really bake this into the DNA of their business. And it's kind of thought about from the first iteration of the idea and how they're building out. When some customers come to us who've been around for 10, 15, 20 years, then there's obviously an established business there. This is new. There are some incumbents on the board who are quite hesitant or think it's not an important idea. So there's a lot of different kind of things to think about, that kind of stakeholder management, as well as thinking about people who are the people who are the persuadables versus the people who are like, well, this is just a load of nonsense. So I think they've kind of got a bigger set of challenges in a way, because it feels more risky, because they're already there, they're already established, that they're already profitable, making money, but they also know that they do need to innovate. So I think there's challenges on both sides, but it's definitely easier from a purpose lens. And also a lot of the scale-ups we work with are entrepreneurs who are millennials. So again, it's just that way of talking or doing business is very intuitive to them. That's a really good phrase, green hushing.
Yeah,
we're going to Google that.
Thanks for that.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks a lot. We've reached time, and it always gets, it's quicker than you think.
No challenging questions then, Ed.
Oh, no, I've met. Damn it.
We thought you were going to ask demand our ESG policy at some point. Share on the screen.
All questions aside, you escaped it. Thanks a lot, Jess. Thanks a lot, Nat. Appreciate it. Thanks for the guys attending, and I will send this out as usual tomorrow. And see you again next fortnight for the last installment, kind of festive Great Shouts. All right.
Yeah. We'll bring some mulled wine.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks. Bye.